The first example is asking about gravitational potential energy. We know that the mass is 63 kilograms, and we know that the cliff is 450 meters high. Gravitational potential energy is always going to be our EP, is going to be our mass multiplied by the force due to gravity multiplied by the height. So in this case, we know that our mass is 63 kilograms. Our G is always going to be 9.81 meters per second squared, because that's the force of gravity. So we have 9.81, and then we have our height, which is 450 meters. When we multiply those together, we'll get 278,113.5 joules. And we look at significant digits. We have 2 right here and 3 right here. So we need to give back 2 significant digits. So we would turn this into 2.8. We need to put it into scientific notation. So we're moving the decimal point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So we have 2.8 times 10 to the 5 joules. And I'll box up my answer at the end. Example 2 says how much work is done to lift a 5 kilogram hammer. So we know our mass is 5 kilograms. We know that our height is 2 meters. We always know that our force due to gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared. And in this case, it's asking for our work. We know that our work is going to be equal to our gravitational potential energy because it's how much work was actually needed to lift that hammer up. So we can say that our work is equal to our potential energy. We know that our potential energy is going to be M times G times H. So we can put in our numbers here. 5 times 9.81 times 2, we're going to get 98.1 joules. And then again, if you look at significant digits, I have 2 and 2. So I need to make sure that I'm giving back 2. So my final answer is 98 joules. Notice that my units that I'm putting in are always going to be kilograms, meters, and meters per second. For the third question, it told us our force. It says that the weight is 600 newtons, which is our force. Our question mark here is our potential energy again, and it says that our height is going to be 3.5 meters. When we look back at our formulas, again, we know that our potential energy is equal to our work. We know that our work is equal to our force multiplied by our distance. We know that our force is equal to our mass times the force of gravity. And we know that our potential energy, our gravitational potential energy, is equal to our mass times gravity times our height. When you look at all these formulas, you see that right here, F is equal to mg. And you can also see that mg is right there. So instead of saying that EP is equal to mg times h, in this case what we can say, because F is equal to mg, we can put an F in there. So we can say that it's just going to be equal to force times our h. And that means we can just say that 600 newtons multiplied by our height of 3.5 meters will equal 2100 joules. And for significant digits, we have 2 and 3, so we need to give back 2, which means we're putting into scientific notation. We have 2.1, we move the decimal 3 times, so we have times 10 to the 3 joules. This last question says a crane is going to use 8 kilojoules of energy. So it's using that much energy to lift it up the building. So that's how much potential energy it would have when it's at the top of the building as well. So we can say that the potential energy that this crate would have when it's at the top of the building would be 8 kilojoules. And 8 kilojoules is going to be the same thing as 8,000 joules. We also know that the crate has a mass of 125 kilograms. And we also know that our gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared. What the question is asking us for is height. So we know our formula is going to be EP is going to be mass times the force due to gravity times our height. In this case, what we're looking for is height. So that means we're going to have to rearrange the formula and isolate our height. In order to do that, I need to get rid of my mass and my gravity. So I'm going to divide both sides by m and g. On the right hand side, because there's mg on the top and mg on the bottom, they can cancel out. And then I can rewrite my formula now. I have EP on the left over mg is going to be equal to h. Now that I have an h on one side all by itself on the top, I can put in my numbers. So I have 8,000 joules. I had to convert it into joules because that's the units I need. And I'm dividing that by 125, and I'm also dividing it by 981, and that will equal my height. And that equals 6.523 meters. But again, significant digits, the question gave me 2 and 3, so I'm going to use 2 because that was the lowest. So I'm going to say 6.5 meters.